So as we get further and further into the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, there continues to be a ton of talk and discourse online around where we are really at with things like continued sales momentum and that big question mark on whether or not it's reached that commonly used phrase, market saturation, meaning we will start to see it really slow down and decline month in and month out, and ultimately transition from seeing it to leading the charts without fail to turning into more of a third place console in comparison to the other guys being Sony and Microsoft. And in today's video, we have to break down the latest NPD sales data that has this topic in all of the headlines once again, with varying takes on if this is good news or bad news for the Switch. And I want to weigh in with my personal 2 cents on this topic and discuss where we are truly at and where we should expect to be headed with Nintendo Switch console sales going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, today we are once again discussing Nintendo and where they are at with the success of the Nintendo Switch, because yes, this console, month in and month out since release in March of 2017, has historically held the top spot in total unit sales and many times even total dollar sales in comparisons to the competition in major regions around the world. And if you're unfamiliar with NPD, that is the physical hardware and software sales tracker here in the North American region, so it has a lot of eyeballs on it when we get concrete for sure numbers on how both games and console sales perform. And first, to go over what's sparking this debate once again online, let's quickly look at the exact data from Benji Sales over on Twitter, where you can see the following post: November NPD sales results, hardware, number 1, PlayStation 5, number 2, Nintendo Switch, number 3, Xbox Series. Now, there is some notable software on here as well, because in the number 1 spot, we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare, God of War Ragnarok, number 2, keep that in mind for this discussion, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, number 3, also keep that in mind for this discussion, and then many multi-platform games beneath that, and even Mario Party Superstars making it into the top 10 notably. Now, the two different conflicting viewpoints online around this data is, first, your camp of folks that do think that yes, the Nintendo Switch has clearly reached a point of market saturation at its almost full 6th year and fastly approaching its 7th year of being sold, that we should be around the corner of what is next, because this is also the launch month of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and you would have expected to see Nintendo run away with the top unit sales when they launch their blockbuster 2022 game that by all accounts will be its biggest 2022 title and will most likely break records that no Pokemon game have touched before it. We're already talking about records broke in terms of the best console exclusive launch ever. That is how big of a deal these games are. And if there truly was enough new users out there that don't have a Switch in their hands today, you might assume that yes, this would ultimately coincide with bigger numbers in the console sales department. And that is where I want to first spend a little bit of time on Nintendo Switch and some perspective with the situation, because I'm saying this as somebody who actually wants more powerful hardware and thinks it might be very smart for Nintendo to launch it in 2023 alongside of a game like Tears of the Kingdom, whether it be a small revision to the current Switch or just a true up, more powerful, backwards compatible Switch 2 that you can still play all of your current day library of games on, but move it to what's next so you can get a lot of third-party releases and you can have games run smoothly that are only sometimes sold to us as cloud-only ports today, because of the development hoops that you have to jump through to get games, especially third-party, higher taxing in the graphical department games, to run on the Switch hardware today. That Tegra X1 chip is absolutely aged, but even as somebody like myself with that mindset, I can clearly see that there's really something different going on here, because this doesn't necessarily mean it's a stark drop-off of console sales. It simply seems to me that Sony also had a blockbuster title launch this month in November, which is God of War Ragnarok, one that many PlayStation fans may have been waiting to buy their consoles or start hunting for their consoles that have not been in stock readily available anywhere up to this point in time for this big marquee first-party Sony launch. And while God of War doesn't necessarily do the exact numbers that Pokemon does, it is arguably Sony's biggest game of the year, period, and definitely one that has PlayStation fans' eyeballs attached to it, similar as us Nintendo fans are well aware of games like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And while you can say it's a cross-generational game, so you don't have to buy a PS5 just to play it, it is also the best way to experience the game with the smoothest frame rate and the better textures and better graphics. So there is a large correlation on Sony's success with that, in addition to the fact that you have to keep in mind when we are talking about Xbox Series S and X consoles, in addition to the PlayStation line of consoles, they are just now getting to the point where you can actually find these very rarely on store shelves at all. In some surprise markets, they were showing up in Walmarts and Best Buys and Targets, and that would also lead a lot of consumers to say, hey, we haven't seen that PS5 since it launched back in November of 2020 ever. I see one right now. Maybe go pick it up because I never see these things in stock, and it could have even caused some impulse buying out there, in addition to the fact that the supply chain issues are slowly but surely getting caught up, and you are seeing things like the graphics cards and these next gen or now current gen gaming consoles finally be sourced to adequate levels of consumer demand. And that is what I think the larger picture of Sony's success is here. Then you also have to realize that this is actually somewhat still impressive in Nintendo's camp, because they still outsold the Xbox Series X and S on a nearly 6-year-old console, and they are doing this with a ridiculous software attach rate. The type of software that is selling on the Nintendo Switch today is in the multi-millions, with major franchises that were released this year, between games like Splatoon 3, the evergreen title Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that just does not stop selling, and these brand new mega games that are Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Nintendo is definitely in a unique position where, yes, their hardware is absolutely aged and a lot of us may want a revision. They also are not going to have their hand forced to necessarily have to do it anytime soon, because even if the console sales do start to slow, and I honestly do believe that is the trend we will see, I don't think we're talking month in, month out, Switch #1 dominant performance every single time without fail. I think that that period in history has come and gone, but they also still have such another means to drive revenue from their first party software and from things like Nintendo Switch Online that they never even could tap into before. They are in a very unique spot in the market right now where they don't need a lot of the third party games to find their success, because they have this vast library of Nintendo IP that they've built up over all these years of being in the gaming space that not even really Sony or Microsoft can touch when it comes to the mindset of having to buy their console to play their games that are exclusive. And you're never going to play, most likely, unless if Nintendo goes under in the hardware department, you're never going to be playing a Zelda or a Mario or an Animal Crossing, even any of these major household names. You're not going to be playing those on PlayStation or Xbox, and Nintendo knows what they have with that. So I really want to hear from you guys around this particular debate online. Do you think that Nintendo Switch being outsold in a big month like November from the PS5 really does tell us a picture that, yes, we are at that stark drop-off cliff where people will not buy new Switches anymore, or at least not anywhere near the rates that they were before, and it really is time for Nintendo to lean into what is next? Or do you think that this is more of a Sony had a very successful year sourcing the amount of consoles just now becoming readily available, and a massive game of their own with God of War Ragnarok in November, and that's really what we're seeing here in terms of Sony walking away with the lead, and then Nintendo again still being ahead of Microsoft on this list of the top 3 console sales performance? And bonus question, when do you think personally, regardless of all of the sales data, is the right time for Nintendo to actually talk about the true next-gen successor, or just a more powerful revision of the current Switch today? And which one would you rather personally see? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.